Hello everyone and welcome back to the program. The longest standing, most consistent forecast that we've made in our Trumpet magazine, our many books and booklets on this program and on my father's program in America, has been that the United States and Britain will collapse and that the fundamental cause is lawless immorality and the breakdown of the Bible-defined institution of family. On today's program, we're going to show you why you should be very concerned about the society-wide breakdown of the family.
The Trumpet Daily.
The most basic building block of a strong and stable civilization is the traditional family structure. And yet that institution has come under a vicious attack from popular culture, from activism, from academia, from government, even religion. Everything about our modern-day dysfunctional society is exactly as the prophet Isaiah said it would be. It's all completely upside down. And because of this breakdown in the fundamental building block of society, our civilization, as Herbert Armstrong noted, is on the way down and out, unless the mighty hand of God intervenes to save us from destruction. And we can be thankful to God that His supernatural intervention in the affairs of mankind is now just ahead of us. In the very near future, the world-ruling family of God is going to be teaching the holy laws of God, laws that God intended from the very beginning to govern the institutions of marriage and family. Let's begin our study today over in the book of John, the Gospel of John, chapter 1. Get your Bible, read along with me, and see what God has to say about this all-important subject. While you're turning over there, let me just refer you to the latest issue of the Trumpet magazine. In this issue, my father has a personal about the institution of family and how that it's coming under attack. He quotes a lot in this article from the journalist, the UK journalist Melanie Phillips, quoting from her 2013 memoir, Guardian Angel. And he says that for the longest time she was a journalist working at a newspaper in London for some 20 or 30 years. And she wrote a lot about family, the institution of family. And she also saw a lot of people in her profession who attacked the family institution. And she said so many of them, they put bias and ideology ahead of facts and evidence. It's a really powerful article. If you haven't gotten a copy, you can get this, by the way, at the trumpet.com website as well. Let me just take you first to an excerpt from Melanie Phillips' memoir. This is her 2013 book, Guardian Angel. Notice this point. This is a profound realization. She says, "And when I started writing about family breakdown, I was also called an Old Testament fundamentalist. At the time, I shrugged this aside as merely a gratuitous bit of bigotry. Much later, however, I came to realize that it was actually a rather precise insult. My assailants, listen to this, my assailants had immediately understood something I did not myself at the time understand, that the destruction of the traditional family had as its real target the destruction of biblical morality." That's a profound point that she makes there at the end, the destruction of the family. I mean, the real target here is biblical morality. The real target here is what the Bible defines as marriage and family, and why God made those institutions in the first place. You can find that quote or that excerpt in my father's personal, and he makes the point in his personal that, and it should be a fundamental point, that family stability and strength in the family, it leads to strength and stability in the society around us. At the same time, when you have instability in the family, when you see a breakdown in the family, then you have a breakdown in the society around you as well. And that's what we're seeing today. Let me just give you one more quote before we go to the book of John. This is from my father's personal in that Trumpet magazine. He says, "If you have a breakdown of biblical morality, you have a breakdown of the family. And if you have a breakdown of the family, you have a breakdown of the nation. He says the strength of the nation comes from the strength of the family, and the strength of the family comes from obeying the one book that defines family, the Holy Bible. I mean, who made marriage and family to begin with? It's discussed in the first chapters of Genesis. Who came up with it? Herbert Armstrong wrote a booklet years ago called Why Marriage? I mean, we see marriages today, and marriages take place all around us, but how many people understand why and why God created it from the very beginning? You have to go back to the source. You have to go back to the Creator, the Maker, to understand why it's so important, why it's so fundamental. What a unique book this Bible is when you think of it, because this is the how-to manual, as Herbert Armstrong often said. This is the book that tells us how to live. God made us. God created us from the dust of the ground. We're physical, fleshly human beings, made of matter, made of dust of the earth. And we live only for a few years. So what is this life all about? And why should we even get married and have a family? Why should we have children? All of that. I mean, you can receive answers to all of those questions in the Holy Bible. If you understand why God made man and why He instituted marriage and family, you can understand a lot about His master plan for all of mankind. And that's the beauty of this. John chapter 1 and verse 1, notice it says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God." It says, all things were made by Him, and without Him was not anything made that was made. It says, "In Him was life, and the life was the light of men." So the Word, you have God and the Word. And the Word, of course, comes from the Greek word logos. You have God, and then you have the spokesman. You have these two beings, not three. You have two beings. And then carry on further. What it says, notice what it says in verse 14. It says, "And the Word," that's the Greek, the logos, "the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld His glory. The glory as of the only begotten of the Father." It says, "full of grace and truth." And so the Word became the Son. When He came in the flesh, He became the Son of God. And God, of course, became His Father. You have God the Father and Christ the Son. And notice further about this relationship. Verse 18, it says, "No man has seen God at any time. The only begotten Son, which is in the bosom of the Father, He has declared Him." So we read here about this relationship, this unique relationship between God the Father and Christ the Son. Here is Jesus Christ right in the bosom of a Father. I mean, this is the most intimate relationship you could imagine. The love between these two, the trust. God the Father and Christ the Son. And the thing of it is, here again, you have to dig into the Bible, but you can understand this. We've got plenty of literature that will help you. But you see this unique, this precious, this loving relationship between God and the Son, and that's the relationship that God the Father wants with you. That's the relationship that He wants from me. That's what He's doing with all of mankind, or what He will do. It starts out small with just the first fruits harvest, but God eventually is going to gather all of mankind into His family, His royal family. You can look into other Bible verses and see how that Christ, again, going back to this father-son relationship, the Bible speaks of Christ as being the pioneer or going along first. He's mentioned as being the first of the first fruits. So He's the first one born into God's family. Father and Son. You see how much God really is a family man. Most people don't even understand this truth. I mean, forget about why the physical family. They can't understand that because they won't accept the fact that God is a father and that we are His children, just like Jesus Christ was His Son. I mean, God really has a fierce determination to raise up a family in the spiritual realm. That's important to understand here at the outset. because then you can better understand why this institution is coming under such a fierce attack from the devil. He hates family. He hates the God family vision. We have a lot to say about that here in this book. It goes by that very title, the God family vision. This is a vision that Satan the devil hates. He hates it because he knows that God's family will soon rule the earth. He knows that God's family is the solution to all of the problems and the evils that we see on this earth. You go back to verse 18 here, and you see that Christ declared the Father. He came to this earth as the Son of God, and He wanted to tell the world about His Father, about God the Father. He didn't come to talk about Himself. That's what a lot of Christian religions or denominations believe, that He came just to talk about Himself and that the whole gospel revolved around Jesus. It didn't. It revolved around the Father. It revolved around this family vision. Notice what my father has to say in this book, The God Family Vision. He says, that was Christ's message for mankind. It was about the Father. Our Father is the head of that wonderful, majestic God family. He says our number one passion must be to declare Him and His family. That needs to be our passion, our number one passion, just like it was for Jesus Christ. Go about and to declare this message, this God family message that revolves right around the Father. Look over at John chapter 3, just a few pages over in this same gospel, the Gospel of John. This is verse 16. Many people are familiar with this particular verse. It says, "For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in Him should not perish, but have everlasting life." So they set up and orchestrated this master plan that would allow for all of us to come into that family. God so loved you and me. He so loved the world that He gave His only Son as that lamb sacrifice. And that opens up the God family to all of mankind. This is what the true gospel is all about. Now, when you understand this true gospel message, then you can better understand why family in the physical realm. The physical family is a type of the God family. I mean, this gets right to the heart and core of God's master plan, of what God is doing. He said from the very beginning, you can see it in Genesis 1, God set out to reproduce Himself. He made man. Man was made in the image and likeness of God. That's what it says in Genesis 1. But Satan has blinded this world to the truth of the gospel. Carrying on in verse 17, it says, "For God sent not His Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through Him might be saved." See the emphasis here. We read John 1. You have God and the Word, and then you have the Word coming in the flesh. And then there's this Father and Son relationship. And then we read further here in chapter 3 about this awesome sacrifice and how that God sacrificed His own Son so that the whole world might be saved, might be brought into that family relationship. That's what God the Father yearns for. Verse 18 and 19, it says, "He that believes on Him is not condemned, but he that believes not is condemned already, because he has not believed in the name of the only begotten Son of God." And notice this, verse 19, "And this is the condemnation, that light is come into the world, and men love darkness rather than light, because their deeds were evil." See, that's the condemnation here. Here God sent His Son to this earth. Light came to this earth, but it says men loved darkness. Now that's why, as I said at the top of the program, that's why we've been saying for decades, that's why Herbert Armstrong before us was saying for decades, that look, it's all prophesied, an upside down society. Isaiah 3 talks about it. And where is this breakdown in the traditional family unit? Where is it leading? It's leading to disaster. But we can thank God, of course, that He will intervene to save mankind. There's many other prophecies that discuss this as well. But look, when you get this God family vision in mind, you can see why all of these institutions are going after the family. They're attacking the family, and you know who's behind it. And we'll talk more about that in the next segment. For now, make sure you write down the information that you need so that you can request this free material. I mentioned the Trumpet magazine. If you aren't a subscriber, let our operators know so that we can send this wonderful magazine into your mailbox every single month. And then get these books as well, The God Family Vision, and then this one. This has a strong warning in it as well, Redefining Family. It shows you what's happening today. And as I say, you should be very concerned about what's happening to the traditional family. We'll be right back.
A strong family built on the biblical model, with a faithfully married, family-focused father and mother aiming to fulfill their respective roles, is something virtually any clear-thinking person can recognize as ideal. Children blessed enough to grow up in this environment have a much greater chance of becoming fulfilled, productive citizens, and building happy families of their own. Such families benefit father, mother, children, and society. This is not an opinion. Decades of social science data back it up, and so does the Bible. To learn more about this biblical model, request complimentary copies of The God Family Vision and Redefining Family.
But this is a world that is full of crime, it is full of immorality, the family structure is being broken down completely. Kids live a life of their own, they don't eat at home with parents anymore. Wives are not at home taking care of their children. Only 13% of families in the United States now have a husband, a wife at home, and 2 or more children. I think I should say 1 or more children. I believe the statistic is, I forget the exact figure of the statistic. We're down to 13%. And a solid family structure is the basis and the foundation of any solid and any perfect and any enduring civilization. What does that mean? It means we're on the way down and out, unless you can arrest that trend. There's one of the causes of the troubles lying ahead. So, we're filled with crime, immorality, corruption. Corruption is in politics, corruption in business. Corruption is everywhere. A hopeless world, offering no hope to the world. Young people stare a hopeless future in the face, so they are frustrated. We're living in a world of pain and suffering and sorrow, and too much suicide, and suicides are increasing very rapidly, like everything else that's bad.
That clip there is from Herbert Armstrong from back in the late 1970s. And there he was talking about how our society is on the way down and out because of this family breakdown that we're seeing. Next, we're going to go over to Revelation chapter 12. Read along with me. Again, in your Bible, let me just take you, as you turn over there, to another quote from my father's personal in this Trumpet magazine. He says, "The Bible has lasted for millennia. The closer that people and families and nations have tried to obey it, the stronger they have been. Our modern societies have ignored, neglected, and rejected the Bible to the point that even most Christians don't know much or believe much of what it says." We're very different today than we were a century ago or a few centuries ago. I mean, it used to just be basic understanding that the closer we try to get to the precepts and the principles of God's Word, the stronger we'll be, the stronger our marriages will be, the stronger will be our families and our nations as well. But what happens when we see such a massive and widespread breakdown of these God-ordained institutions? We should be very concerned about it. It's happening. It's happening in Great Britain. It's happening in the United States of America. It's happening really all over the world. And Revelation 12 explains why. Notice verse 9. It says, "And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceives the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him." Satan deceives the whole world. Satan is the god of this world, as it says in 2 Corinthians 4:4. Satan, Jesus said, Satan is the father of this world. That's John 8 and verse 44. We read or looked at John 1 and John 3 in the first segment. This wonderful relationship between God the Father and Christ the Son. And yet the world looks to the father that is the devil. I don't have time to go through all of these verses, but look at John 8:44 on your own time. And these other verses, like 2 Corinthians 4 and verse 4. Look at what it says here in Revelation 12. He deceives the whole world. It says further in verse 12, "Therefore rejoice, you heavens, and you that dwell in them. Woe unto the inhabitants of the earth and the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knows that he has but a short time." See, the devil's coming down to you and me because he knows his time is short, and he's filled with wrath, and he hates family. He hates the God family. Satan has no family. He despises it. He knows that this is God's purpose and plan. God set out to reproduce himself through family from the very beginning. And Satan's doing everything he can to thwart that effort, to attack the family institution. Notice verse 13. It says, "And when the dragon saw that he was cast unto the earth, he persecuted the woman." I mean, that's the prophetic symbol for the church. He persecuted the woman which brought forth the man-child. He went right after the church. He went right after God's family in embryo. It starts small, just in the one true church. That's what he went after. Notice from my father's personal, July 2017. He says, when Satan, he's commenting on this passage we just studied, when Satan was cast down, the very first target he attacked was the true church of God, which is the embryo of the family of God. The kingdom of God is ruled by the family of God. He says Satan's number one goal after being cast down is to attack the spiritual family, the church of God. So it's not only happened in our nations, I mean, it's happened in God's church as well. But he says further, Satan's second target is the final destruction of the traditional family. I mean, he's coming after our nations. He's coming after your family and mine. He's coming after our children. He's coming after our marriages. And we've got to wake up to this fact and get back to the Bible and get back to God's truth. What a wonderful and blessed book it is. You hearken back to what Melanie Phillips concluded. After years of being attacked, and she finally realized that this destruction of the traditional family, I mean, the real target is the destruction of the biblical morality. That's the real target here. There's a conspiracy against God and His family, His purpose for man. We ought to be very concerned, very concerned. One of the senators in the United States wrote a book recently titled The Vanishing American Adult. He talked about the coming-of-age crisis that we have now. It's without parallel in our history. That's what he had to say about the United States. That's what he had to say about the breakdown of the family in the United States. I mean, we haven't seen anything like this in our history. I told you about my father's personal in this Trumpet. There's another article in this issue about why moral decline matters. Why does it matter? Why should you be concerned about it? Why should it worry you? Well, in that particular piece, it goes through some important history. It's not just what the Bible has to say. I mean, look at what some great historians had to say. Look at what Edward Gibbon had to say about the decline of Rome or the Roman Empire. If you're familiar with his work, he basically attributed it to 5 reasons for the decline, the collapse of this great Roman Empire. And first on the list was Rome's loss of civic virtue and also individual morality. They lost that. And then it led to all kinds of other problems as well. Going back to the United States, I mentioned that book, The Vanishing American Adult. If you go back to the founding of that nation, the American nation, George Washington, America's first president, said, of all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports. That's George Washington acknowledging that religion, morality, here again, what Melanie Phillips said was the biblical morality on which family life, marriage and family are built. You begin to tear all of that down, and what happens? Well, I don't have time to take you through some verses in Leviticus 26 where God spells it out for His people, saying that if you don't obey my laws, this is what it will lead to. These are the curses that will come into your nation. You'll have to go back and study that on your own time. Leviticus 26, there's all kinds of prophecies that I could get into. I've touched on a few of them right here today. But suffice it to say, I mean, we've got a lot to say about this subject in this most recent issue of the Trumpet magazine, and also these two booklets, The God Family Vision, I mentioned it earlier. If you haven't secured your copy of this book yet, it's free of charge. We ask for nothing in return. We just ask you to study it along with this book, this wonderful little booklet. A strong warning in this one, Redefining Family. Stay tuned so that you can get the information you need to request today's free literature. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.